It's 8:42 p.m. My kid has just decided it's the perfect time to ask about Saturn's moons. There's glue in the carpet, the math homework isn't done, and bedtime was supposed to be 42 minutes ago. This is Dad Life after 6 p.m. And this is the Time to Dad podcast. Let's talk about it.
It's Time to Dad.
Hey guys, welcome back to Time to Dad on another episode here. Real talk podcast. We just kind of kick it, like we're hanging out in the backyard, just a bunch of dudes chilling, and we try to keep it real with you guys. We talk about real dad topics, real life scenarios, real things that dads encounter and deal with in their day-to-day lives. So I'm Nick. I'm here tonight with Will, JT, and Joe. So thank you guys for joining us. Tonight, I think tonight's a good night for this topic because I just had some struggles with getting my son to bed actually the past couple nights, but I think tonight we wanted to focus on a couple. I mean, these are literally everyday occurrences. Bedtime routines, getting your kid to bed, and also homework, chore completion, and kind of mundane things like that, and the everyday things that dads deal with, having to do with that. So, I mean, let's talk about bedtime routines, I guess, first. What do your guys' nights look like?
So I can start with that one. My kids have a regiment of 8:30 is the latest that they go to bed, because in the mornings, every time, because they have to be up by 6, because they have to be on the bus by 6:50. And I'll tell you, if they go to bed after 8:30, it is a nightmare waking them up, and then they're hyper emotional. They're super difficult to get moving. They don't want to follow their normal regiment, which is brushing your teeth, getting dressed, the normal day-to-day stuff that we all deal with. One that I run into and where I kind of struggle with, and I'm sure there's plenty of dads out there, is so, and it's different between boys and girls. I want to call that out, that boys are a very different breed than girls when it comes to bedtime. So my daughter, when it's time for bed, she'll fight me a little bit in terms of the routine. She won't want to do certain things, like she won't want to brush her teeth, but then she'll do it. Little side remarks.
The boys will actually fight you.
But the boy, he'll follow the routine. But as soon as he's in bed, it's like, well, now is my time to get out of bed and go make a ton of excuses to get out of bed. So the first one is, Mom, Dad, you didn't give me a hug and a kiss goodnight. It's like, yeah, we did. Well, I need another one. And it's like, oh, okay, let me give you a hug and a kiss goodnight. Then it's, hey, Dad, my knee hurts. Hey, Mom, my the clock's too bright. Or, hey, Dad, I need a music on. And it literally, you could possibly imagine for him to get out of bed is what he does. The struggle that I have with it is, how do you respond? So some of the situations where he's like, I want to give a hug and a kiss. It's like, okay, those are things that help the kid to understand that you're appreciative, you're caring, all that stuff. I don't want to be angry in those moments. But then there's moments where he's like, my knee hurts. And you have like a double-edged sword there, because one, he could just be making an excuse to get out of bed, or in my son's case, for some reason that kid loves medicine. I don't know why, but he'll take medicine, or he'll ask for medicine when he doesn't need it. And so then we have to play this game of, is he telling the truth? Is he lying? And then I end up having to play the bad guy, because I'm like, no, just go lay down and go to bed. We'll check on you in 30 minutes. And 30 minutes later, he's asleep. But it's like, those are the kinds of stuff that I deal with on a nightly basis. Every single night. I'm sure my son's going to come down, because it's 10 o'clock. It's time to go to sleep. And he's going to come up and he's going to be like, Dad, I need to be told a story to go to bed. And it's like, no, I'm not going to tell you a story to go to bed. Anyway, that's my nightly routine. And it's a struggle every night.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not much different for a 6-year-old, really. So Emerson, we typically start his routine around 8 o'clock. We've got to give him, starting around like 7:30, 7:45. He needs countdowns for whatever reason. He likes countdowns. So starting like 7:30, 7:45, we'll give him the reminder, hey buddy, we're gonna start getting ready for bed in 15 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever it is, and we'll give him a countdown down to when it's time to go to bed. And here's where the hiccup, it can either start here or start later, but sometimes the hiccup comes right there. Can I have 5 more minutes, or can I have another minute, or I want to finish whatever movie we're watching or whatever. So you can hit a snag there. And if you derail there, it's a long ass fucking night with Emerson. If for whatever reason, if that transitional point of the night, it doesn't go smoothly, it just, the pile of shit just keeps getting bigger and bigger in trying to get him to bed. So assuming we can make that transition smoothly, he brushes his teeth, he gets his clothes on, we do a little reading in bed. He's a snuggler, so we alternate nights. So whoever's putting him to bed gives him a quick, minute or two of snuggles in bed. And then it's mommy or daddy's turn, whoever didn't put him to bed, to go and snuggle for a couple minutes. And then again, if all goes well, he's in bed, he's ready to go to sleep, and we don't hear a peep out of him again. But like you said, some nights he's not ready he's wound up because we were, out later than usual, or, maybe we gave him an after dinner treat that was probably a little too late. So he's on some sort of sugar rush. But some nights he just wants to play. He just can't turn his little brain off. And so some nights he'll play with like his magnet tiles in his room on the floor, because we leave his door cracked, and he's got night lights, and so he'll play in the light right there with his little magnet tiles for a little bit, half an hour or so, and then he'll get back in bed and go to sleep. But then other nights, like tonight when I came out here to get ready to record, he knew my wife was working in her office, so he's knocking on her office door trying to get in there, and I had to go in there and kind of get a little stern with him about keeping his butt in his bed and things like that. But the nights where it just goes flawlessly and you can walk out of the room and there's like, because after bedtime's like I feel like it's a sacred time for parents, right? That's your time to finally shut off, to not have any responsibilities, to not be worrying about looking after your kid or taking care of them. So every little moment after that bedtime that gets disrupted, I feel like is a major what's the word I'm looking? It's a major disruptor to your schedule, right? Because you don't get that time to decompress from the day, and if you were stressed out, that just kind of compounds more stress on top of what you already had going on. So it's a struggle, man. And some nights, it's a knockdown, drag out fight with him about it. And it's ended in screaming matches. I don't know any parent that hasn't had one of those where you're burnt out from the frickin' day. You've got your child that's also, burnt out and stressing and not ready for bed, and all they want to do is hang out with you more and play, and it can be stressful, man. And I've lost my cool over it, and my wife, who's probably easily the most level-headed out of the two of us, has lost her shit a couple times, and it's hard, man. That's a weird time of the day, and it kind of affects the whole household. It kind of hinges on how the nightly routine goes.
Yeah. Well, I think like, where are you going with that? I was going to ask you, like, so I know like when me and my wife will have stuff like that, Nick, and like let's say one of us will lose our cool, then I think it's really like you said, like the whole rest of the night is messed up. But
yeah,
sometimes by me getting mad, she gets mad, right? And like,
she gets mad at you,
mood, right?
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
like sometimes I would say mad at me, maybe like, hey, you could have done this better, and maybe we'll get that in a little bit, and vice versa sometimes. Or like, I'm in a good mood because I had a great day at work, and she's in a bad mood. I'm like, why'd you get so snappy so quick, right? Or vice versa because you haven't there.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how do you like react to that, or vice versa? Like, has that happened to you guys?
I experience that all the time. In fact, I'm probably one of the short tempered of us here. You know,
Will's
I
like,
am
I get
pretty
those phone calls. I know.
I'm pretty reactionary. Um, I tend to try and, you know, be the fun parent at times, but I'm also that guy that's okay. You know, you've been told to do something. It's time to do it. And Jasper's too. He's still not talking, but he understands far more than we actually give him credit for. Um, Bedtime is always a battle with him, especially getting to stay in his own bed. But no, oftentimes I do I work on me trying not to just immediately jump straight into, you know, foul mouth yelling and stuff like that. And I struggle with it. I have a little bit of an anger problem, you know, especially when he's been told something and he doesn't do it. I get pretty teed off, and my wife she'll get on my ass about it. She'll say, "Hey, you know, he is too. He might understand what you're saying, but he doesn't understand why you're yelling." And she's right. You know, I'd be a liar if I said, you know, that I was always right about that, but because I know I lose my temper, but I have been proactively trying to take steps to maybe still be stern, but not quite be as loud as I am about it.
Yeah, I think that's my problem.
When they,
yeah, I mean,
I think that's most men's problem.
Yeah,
right. Our first reaction is kind of, I mean, to yell, and I think it's more of an immediate reaction to yell. It's hard. We control it, you know, as much as we can. But I think that is especially right because most men want to be respected, and if you're not being respected by a 4-year-old or a 3-year-old or a 2-year-old, it's kind of like, shut up.
Yeah.
You know, like do what you're told after the 19th time you have to brush your teeth.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I like respect, but I also believe in a healthy amount of fear. I do, you know what I'm saying? And I'm sorry, that doesn't matter what age you are, you know, 4 or 16. You know, there's got to be a healthy amount of fear. It's like, all right, you know, dad said something, you know, and I feel sometimes the only time that I can get his attention, or hell, even his mama's attention, sometimes is if I put a little bass in my voice and get a little louder. And to a 2-year-old,
the key is though,
it's kind of hit.
And I'm not saying this because I'm at a saint. I'm definitely not a saint at not raising my voice, like you said. But the key is, man, once you have to very strategically use that, because once it becomes normal place where you're doing it too often, it totally loses its effect that you want it to have, and then it becomes. I mean, we dealt with this with my teenage stepdaughter. Then it just, when they're older and they're so used to it, it just becomes a fucking all out yelling match about stupid shit. And the same thing goes with little kids. You gotta, and like I said, I by no means am I practicing what I'm preaching here. This is a do as I say, not as I do thing. But you have to strategically use it and use it as sparingly as humanly possible. And I understand, like we just talked about, like dads are dads, and I mean we tend to be tough dudes. We tend to be aggressive and a little rough around the edges. But the more strategically you can use and pick and choose those moments where you kind of get louder and put that bass in your voice, as you said, the more effective it's going to be, because it'll lose the shock factor quickly if it happens too often. And it'll just end up having either no result or a negative result altogether.
Or you got to get louder. Or
exactly. Then all of a sudden you're escalating it.
Right?
Yeah.
I think that's where some of that stuff comes into, you know, when you get into, right, like spanking or or getting further, right? Because if something doesn't work, what do we tend to do? We get louder. We get more aggressive. Right?
Yeah, let me figure something else out.
Well, it's funny you say that because it does remind me of a saying. Something one of my old COs in the military told me. He says, the most dangerous man is the man that is in complete control of his emotions. He said that's the most dangerous and effective type of person is somebody that can control their anger despite the odds. Somebody that's able to step out, into the battlefield or just anything, and despite whatever's going on, he can control himself in a manner to think properly. And there's often times where when I do fly off the handle, I'm not thinking clearly. I might say something that I shouldn't have said. So
I will say,
I mean, that it does ring true.
Yeah.
You're right. It does lose its effectiveness, and it also teaches your kid that's how to handle things. And I don't want to do that for Jasper. He's two. The one thing I have this problem with is, I've briefly discussed Jasper is learning big emotions, experiencing new emotions like anger and everything like that. And I have kind of flown off the handle. And if he were older, it might have been a little bit more suitable. But he got mad, and you could tell by the way he was looking, and then he hit his mom in the face.
Dude, Emerson was a hair puller, man.
And the thing is, he knew he was in the wrong. Off running, he crossed the house when he saw me get up. He knew that he was. I mean, yeah, it is effective to some degree, but it loses its effectiveness. Like you said, if it becomes commonplace.
I mean, honestly, I'll tell you, just as effective as getting loud and letting him hear that booming dad voice is being ridiculously quiet. There's been a couple nights where things will escalate with Emerson, and my wife and I have both done this, and you can just tell it's getting to a boiling point where you're not accomplishing anything. Like you're yelling, Emerson's fucking upset. He may be throwing toys, and at that point, my advice is to just find some self-control within and just leave the situation. Because we've had to do that a couple times where there's no consoling him, there's no redirecting him to try and get him back on track or calm him down. So we just leave the room. And at that point, he's like, well, shit, like there's no one anymore to antagonize. And when that happens, usually one of two things happens. He'll either go find his water bottle and take a sip and calm the hell down, or he'll just crawl into bed and fall the fuck asleep. If we just absolutely leave the situation and, you give them a final, I don't want to say ultimatum, but you say, if you're not in bed by whatever, when I come back up here, XYZ, you give them a consequences, and then you just walk away and give them a chance to, deal with those big feelings you were talking about, and let them develop those coping mechanisms to kind of calm themselves down. And with Emerson, 9 times out of 10, if it gets to that point, that works with him. He's able to he might go back to playing, which is fine. He might crawl into bed, or he might just sit there and still be upset. And then to follow that piece up is when you do go back and you realize, right, you've made that conscious decision that, holy shit, this escalated where it shouldn't be. When we do go back in, we'll talk with him about it. And we may apologize if we got too loud and try and explain why we got loud. But we do try to, have some sort of conversation with him about why mommy or daddy got so upset, or trying to understand, why he didn't want to get in bed, or why he didn't want to, put his pajamas on. So we do try to revisit it and understand his side of things, so he at least realizes that we're not just doing it to be mean parents. We do want to understand, how we can make it better for him. And I think that goes a long way. But some nights, man, it's fucking wild, dude. Wild.
All right. So on to many many things that dads really enjoys. One of you briefly spoke of it. After kids go to bed, whether it be 8:30, 9:30, what do you do to wind down? What do y'all do to just kind of chill, catch your breath, relax a little bit before you?
I drink a seltzer.
You drink a seltzer.
Right.
My wife has a glass of wine. I drink seltzer.
Nice.
I
don't
do it nearly as often as I like, but I like a cigar.
I mean, I'll crack a beer, but mostly I just veg out. That's like my time to not worry about work. Not be playing mind games with myself. Of course, like most dads, I'll doom scroll some Facebook. I'll watch some weird ass shit on Discovery Channel or the Science Channel or something.
Is that by yourself or is that with Jen though?
I don't. Right? So if Jen's not editing or something like that, and we're both downstairs watching TV, she usually is the ruler of the remote. So we end up watching some weird ass show that she wants to watch, which is whatever. I mean, I have the TV on in the background a lot, but I don't really pay attention to it much.
Do you have a TV in the bedroom or you only watch downstairs?
Yeah, we do. But I mean, if she edits up there because she's trying to relax or whatever, she may turn it on, but we don't really watch a whole lot of TV in the bedroom. It's usually downstairs where we watch it. But I don't know. I mean, yeah, she likes to watch some weird shit. I won't even go into like she likes just.
Don't put that on the air.
Well, yeah. If I show up dead, I did not commit suicide. My wife probably killed me. She watched so many weird like murder documentaries and shit.
True crime.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Come looking for my body somewhere.
She's constantly watching true crime. My wife is constantly watching true crime stuff, or she's doom scrolling body cam footage on Facebook, and 90% of it, I know when she's watching body cam footage because you always hear this obnoxious, irate, screaming woman say, "Get your hands off of me! Get your hands off!"
Dude, the shit she puts on to watch, it's like some of it's just flat out dumb. Some of it's just like straight like fucked up stuff. And she's like, no, but the ladies in the group are all saying like this is the best show to watch, and I'm like, I'm catching bits and pieces of it in the background, and I'm like, who the fuck in their right mind is like, yeah, this is quality entertainment? Because some of it's just flat out fucking weird, and I'm like, how do you watch this shit?
Or deeply morbid.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's saying something. That's saying something coming from a military veteran, because we have a very dark, twisted sense of humor.
No, we don't.
And there's not.
What do you mean?
Will has no sense of humor.
But there's not a lot that can shock me. But my wife, if there's something that is in existence that can shock me, my wife can find it.
So real quick,
and she'll put it on the TV.
I know we all veg out. I know I do. I'll doom scroll YouTube because I don't got Facebook, but I'll doom scroll the shorts and do all that stuff. But just kind of circling back real quick on the winding down part, to any of you, I know I do it at least, but do any of you like a lot of self-reflection on the day on like how your interactions with your kids went? Like, what could I do better? How could I do this better? If you do, like, are you looking up, anything to try to help you with that? Like me personally, like, similar to JT, I fly off the handle at times, and I have very good control over my emotions, but when it gets to that point, for me, when I fly off the handle, it's when it's unethical decision making that my kids do, because they don't understand ethics. They don't understand, like my 7-year-old, she doesn't understand that, oh, well, it's not good to do this because she hasn't learned it yet.
Yeah.
She's getting there. She's slowly learning it. My 5-year-old definitely doesn't understand ethics. JT's 2-year-old definitely don't understand ethics. But as soon as the kid does something that's unethical, so for instance, my daughter and my son, they love to wrestle, but my son will take it too far, and my daughter will definitely take it too far because she tries to be the bigger sibling. And one day my daughter hit my son with one of those wiffle ball bats, the plastic ones, And I flew off the handles and was like reprimanding her, getting really aggressive, getting really angry, and was trying to but like trying to get that into her head. Like, you do not do this to people. If you do, you're self-defense. That's the only option you have in that situation where it makes sense to do it. Otherwise, this is your sibling, this is your brother. You need to treat him with love and respect and kindness. But when I went to bed that night, I wasn't able to doom scroll. I wasn't able to do those things because I was just so focused on the self-reflection and being like, did I handle that right? Could I have handled that better? Does anybody else do that? I mean,
I do that with my wife, I think. Like, I don't
Okay.
think there's times like I sit there. Well, listen, it might be different too. I don't do bedtime all the time, right? I'm still in the office right now. So my wife handles more of that most, right? My wife doesn't work. She's a stay-at-home mother. So I don't handle bedtime as much as she does. If I do, I'll take the older one. Like, I'll take Benjamin because he's definitely attached to me. She takes baby Joey. But I feel like if I'm reflecting, it's kind of more like we're sitting there reflecting at the end of the night together. Like, all right, we got both kids to bed, shower, we get ready in bed, and before we watch TV for an hour or something, we'll kind of sit there and we'll talk, right, about her day, my day, and then it's usually, yes, like, what did the kids do? What is this? And we'll kind of, I guess if they did bad, it's like, all right, well, what could we do better? Hey, if she had a rough day, like, hey, maybe we can try this, or like, why was he at swim class and didn't want to do this, or yelled at a teacher, whatever it is. So I don't think I sit there and reflect by myself then. I think that might be more of my morning thing because I have more of a morning ritual than I do kind of at night. Because at night,
same.
It's kind of like, like whatever happens at the end of the night, because my nights are always different. Right? I could be working late, so I don't have as much time. But my morning's always the same for the most part, unless the baby wakes up.
For me, my morning, it's my reset button. As soon as I wake up in the morning, everything from yesterday, that's gone.
Yeah.
It's out the window. It's done.
Right.
So I don't even reflect on my yesterday. I always focus on what's going on today.
Yeah.
So that's where, like, I try to reflect on it that night, and I do some like personal thought, or I'll look up an article, and I'll just be like, okay, if a kid's doing this, what are some acceptable responses? And then I'll take that and I'll kind of digest it, and then go, how would I respond normally, and how can I maybe tweak it a little bit to maybe change how the kid's going to respond to it? Because my son, for instance, responds very differently than my daughter. My daughter, if I just simply go, Saber, she'll just look at me with like those teary eyes and go, oh, Dad, I'm sorry. My son, on the other hand, if I go, Diabol, he's just like, yeah, what? What do you want? Like, okay, so a little bit of volume in my voice ain't doing much. So then I have to get a little bit more brazen with him, and it's like, okay, how can I do that? How can I engage with him differently today than I did yesterday? Yeah. And honestly, like, it's helped a little bit, but that's just where I was curious on your guys'
I guess I do.
Trying to like coach yourself, like through your own emotional things.
I think she's always there. So I might Google the situation and reflect. But then again, I'm always reflecting with her. I mean, there's never a night, unless I'm away for business, there's never a night we're not at the end of the night together. So
I wait till I'm,
and there's always good stuff.
Yeah, I was gonna say I wait till I'm in bed laying down to think about that shit, and then I end up in this rabbit hole of the depths of my mind and can't get myself to sleep.
Yeah, and that's when you got to put on a podcast like Time to Dad. Everybody.
Yeah. Well, I'm already in bed, so how am I going to do that?
Like and subscribe.
Well, with me, I probably don't do a whole lot of self-reflection as often as I should. More often than not, if we reflect on the day or how things could have been handled with Jasper, I do it with my wife. And when I say self-reflection, it's more of my wife telling me everything I did wrong.
So that's self-reflection.
There's good in that.
Yeah. Your wife reflecting on what you did.
Yeah.
See, and there's good in that, But the reason why I was asking about the self-reflection is because, I don't know about you guys, but if I fly off the handles too far, my wife will definitely let me know. But I don't want to have to get to that point where she has to let me know, like, hey, I've flown off. You're going way too deep. Yeah. You're going way too hard. You need to tone it back. So that's where I was just wondering about like the self-reflection by yourself, just being like, dude, how you need to do better. You need to handle it better. Do you guys do that? Because again, like I do.
I don't think I
don't
do
know
it
if
every
that's
night.
commonplace.
I mean, I get a lot of that, right? I mean, listen, I get a lot of that, I guess, on church on Sunday, you know, depending on the message sometimes. I mean, if they're talking about something bad, I'll be like, oh shit, on Tuesday I really messed that up. I got to do better as a dad and a husband, I think.
Let's be real.
And
Let's be real. Instagram a lot of that stuff too. Right? And you kind of start doing those things. Sometimes I'll send the video to my wife. Sometimes I'll send the video to my wife. Try that.
Maybe we should try that next time.
You know, but it's not like maybe it should be. I don't know. Maybe it is something that should be an intentional self reflection, and that's something that we got to improve on. I mean, I know sometimes she's like, man, today was freaking hard, and I'm like, I don't want to freaking hear it. My day sucked too, but I was at work, you know, like, but.
Well, hey, let's hear from the audience. If you as a dad feel like you self-reflect, don't self-reflect, leave a comment down below. Let us know. Do you think that, you should self-reflect or not? And if you do, how do you do it? What's your mechanism? How do you look up articles? Do you just self-reflect and go, I'm going to do that better next time? Like, what's your process? Let us know.
Yeah.
One thing, I kind of wanted to dive into a little bit more on the discipline versus gentle parent. I don't know if you guys are ready to chat about that yet, but I definitely am ready to talk about it, because that's my biggest thing. Is, like kind of like JT talked about, like I am a reactive parent in a lot of situations. Now, mind you, I am in control in the situation, but at the same time, like, I don't want to be as reactive. The other problem that I deal with is loud noises kind of trip me and make me react. Which I don't know if anybody here has ever been a parent, but loud noises is it's kind of natural with kids. My son has a drum set. Case in point, loud noise. So but my natural response when something happens, something drops on the floor, is I become defensive and very reactive in nature. And I've been working on that as best I can for myself. But like when your kids are doing something, when do you know to respond? Like for me, again, it's ethical. Like if they're doing something that I know they're going to need to have it just instilled in themselves, like this is a bad thing, this is not a good thing. Yeah, that's when I tend to be a bit more disciplinary, and I'd be a bit more aggressive, because I need them to know that this is not good. And then how is it kind of influenced? How has it influenced your parenting style? Because for me, I'm a gentle giant for most instances, but there are a few occasions where I, yell more than, I talk. And yeah, there's moments where I look back and I do myself reflect, like, you could have handled that better, Will. Like, you need to chill out. Like you need to sit in the situation for a minute, kind of process it, and then respond to what the kid's doing. But I don't know. If you guys are different, let me know.
My self-reflection is me sitting out on the back porch or out in my little sitting area and everything for an hour or two, just doom scrolling or playing a little mobile game, just kind of just chilling and taking in my nicotine, or smoking a cigar, and just kicking myself in the ass for not handling something a little differently. Obviously, I don't like to raise my voice, much like you. Loud noises freak me out. I'm a little jumpy. I hear a boom or something like that, I instantly kind of freeze up, and I'm like thinking, okay, I don't necessarily want to chalk it up to PTSD or anything like that, but I always think worst case scenario whenever I hear loud noises. I'm thinking, oh shit, we under attack, or did my kid break his neck? And then I'm sorry, I don't get upset whenever Jasper gets hurt. I get pissed, because right now Jasper's all about mama. And that's actually what I feel the most helpless with Jasper, is whenever he's hurt. And then I get angry. Like, why'd you do that, Jasper? And I'm talking loud, because like I said, he understands far more than we actually give him credit for. Even though he's not talking, he understands. So I find myself, talking to talking to him or yelling. But whenever I'm out in the backyard, I often kick myself in the ass because, I was probably, he's two. He's not talking. It might be a little bit different if he was more verbal. I would know he understands what I'm saying. That way, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's just harder. I don't know. I'm not saying that my specific, issues are harder than the next man's, but it's just one of the challenges I feel I met with is just trying to talk to him and still feel like I'm being listened, heard and understood. Because Jasper's a smart kid. Just because he's not talking yet doesn't mean he doesn't know what's going on. Like I said, a kid that bolts the second you stand up after he slapped his mom in the head, he knows right and wrong. He knows he shouldn't have done that. So I'm doing something right where he knows, what's good and what's bad, but I should address it much differently, being that he can't tell me what's on his mind. Because when he's throwing a tantrum, oftentimes I think it's just him being a brat. That's how I perceive it. He can't tell me what's wrong. So and this is an ongoing thing at bedtime too. Typically Mama does bedtime because right now he's all about Mama. Every once in a while he'll let me hold him, kind of lull him into a sleep, but most of the time it's Mama. But then there's times where he's just not ready. He fights it, and obviously, him being two, there's not much negotiating there. We don't negotiate with terrorists.
So you sound like my mom.
Terrorist?
So I used to hear that so much.
I got a question for this. So, with the whole, so let's say your kids do have a hard time. What do you guys? What is things that have worked to help, let's say, bedtime or any really behavior? There's always, I know my brother's done the star systems with his kids. I guess my oldest is getting to that age. When would you, Willie, you have the oldest kids, right? Well, actually, Nick, yours are right around there. Yeah. So you have your stepdaughter.
Well, Lily's way older, so. I can speak about older kids, but she's past that now.
Yeah, obviously way past that now. That's what I mean. But have you done it? Did it work? Have you had friends that do it? I don't even know if it worked for my brother. I know sometimes it did. I gotta ask him, but I saw the stars. I was at his house the other day, and I was like, we haven't even thought about the star system. My wife had it in daycare, and she said it didn't work, so she's kind of against it almost a little bit, I think. So, but I don't know. I don't have any experience with it.
We've done a couple things. We've done, I don't know, what is the star system a specific program, or are you just talking about they get?
No, just give them a star for actually going to bed and brushing their teeth without asking 58 times.
So we've
hey, they did good today. Anything good behavior. They cleaned up after that.
So we've done a few things. So we've done. Emerson actually went to a play therapist for about a year, just because he was having crazy meltdowns. And Jen and I were like, this can't just be us being crazy, and this is just how he is. So Emerson went to a play therapist for about a year, and that was kind of frustrating because he'd go in there and he'd be a little angel. It was like a big play day for him. And that was the hardest part of paying all that money for him to see a play therapist, was that he could have a great day with a play therapist. He gets rave reviews because they'd come and meet with you. And the whole idea of that play therapy is to try and figure out, they're trying to figure out your kid's triggers, right? They're trying to figure out their tendencies. They're trying to figure out how far they can push them before they hit that boiling point. There's a lot of things going on. But at the end of each session...
So when you say boiling point, what's a boiling point in that?
Where your kid hits that emotional point where they can no longer self-regulate that emotional feeling, to where there's nothing you're going to be able to do to calm them down at that point. It's at that point, there's nothing but time, right? They're either going to exhaust themselves because of the tantrum they're throwing. They're going to fall asleep. Or they're just going to realize, what the fuck am I doing? And go on living, going back to playing. So there's a lot of things that are involved, but they had us try, it was kind of like a red, yellow, green light thing. So we had some flashcards at home. And so when I'm trying to think of a good example, it's been so long since we've used them. But let's say we ask Emerson to do something and Emerson's like, no, I don't want to do that. Okay, well, that's a yellow card, right? Because he's heading down a path towards doing something negative that he should not be. So you kind of reset. You either try to redirect or ask a different way, and you ask again. And so let's say the task we asked him to do was take his dirty dish up to the sink or whatever. And so the second time we ask, instead of just saying no, he throws a fucking plate across the room or something. So then you have a red card. And that worked a little bit. But I feel like he kind of became numb to those cards at some point, and to where he just really didn't, the colors didn't mean anything to him. So then we tried, it was a very similar thing, but it was more of a long-term tracking. So we found these little stickers on Amazon, and green was like a happy smiley face, yellow was kind of like a mute face, and red was like an angry face. And so each time, he did something good, he'd get a green face. And every time he did something that was like questionable or probably not the best choice, he'd have a yellow sticker on the sheet. And then obviously if he was throwing tantrums and doing crazy shit, he'd have reds, the red frowning faces on that thing. And so that kind of worked a little bit. And then the other thing we've done the countdown system, where I think every parent knows the countdown system, where you ask a kid to do something and they're just no. And so you start counting down.
That never worked.
It worked initially, but it's kind of like the yelling thing we talked about earlier, where your kid they get used to it. And your options at that point are, you either come up with tougher consequences, or you pivot to a different system altogether, right? I think those are the only two options out of that. Yeah. But consequences I want to talk about for a second are, when Lily was growing up, we had that whole other dynamic where I'm stepdad. She's always just been a little resentful to Jen, just about all kinds of shit that went on before I was even in the picture. And so Lily was old enough to where your consequence couldn't just be, okay, well, no TV tonight. You had to make consequences that actually held weight. And they were a real palpable consequence that she could understand and would realize, like, oh shit, I don't want that to happen. But and why I'm telling you this is because all these methods can backfire. And the reason I'm talking about consequences now is because it's the same thing as the flashcards we talked about and the smiley faces. The kids will become numb to it, and you will. Where Jen and I found ourselves is, there's just consequence, and they build up to the point to where your kid is like, well, fuck it, I can't do anything anymore, and it actually makes it a million times worse. And hindsight, I mean, Jen and I were pretty young when we were dealing with this stuff with Lily. And then when we were dealing with it in her later teenage days in high school, we had Emerson. So it was really hard to focus and try and find materials tailored towards Lily, because we were so worried about, bringing Emerson up and him being so young. So that's a little bit of our fault. But we just kept giving these consequences out. And it just got to the point where Lily was like, okay, well, you've fucking taken everything away. I can't do shit. so what am I going to do now? And so we would take things like her phone away. And so what the fuck happens then? Some jackass kid from school gives her some old ass burner phone that they had. And we found a tablet in our house some kid gave her to still communicate with them on. We found a phone from one of those kids. So it really is a slippery slope, and you really have to pick and choose and be careful when it comes to consequences. And I'm not going to say, every kid is going to respond that way. And I'm not going to say that we didn't immediately jump to harsh consequences when in reality, we could have probably started with the softer consequence and worked our way up. Lily was kind of a different animal in that everything was 0 to 100 like right away. There was no escalation.
Well, the hard thing too, as a parent, I should say, like, the hard thing is, like, if you do say I'm gonna do this, and even if you didn't mean it, but it was just like a reaction, I'm gonna take this away, and then if you don't, we're screwed.
Or if you come back, or if you come back and you bend it, and that kind of shit happened in COVID days where, we'd tell him, you can't be on your tablet or whatever. And this was kind of at the end of COVID, and we'd say, okay, no tabby for a day or whatever. But then all of a sudden I've got a day full of conference calls and I'm at home with him. So what's he fucking doing? He's keeping himself occupied on the tabby. So yeah, that's a good point. But there are a lot of things that can backfire, and I don't think any parent makes a consequence just out of pure evil. You're just trying to bring a means to an end and redirect. And my mom is a saint at redirecting. She was really good at that with Lily, and she was really good with that with Emerson when he threw a temper tantrum. She could quickly take his attention off whatever he was pissed off about. Maybe it was, okay, we're all done playing with this toy, or okay, your parents are on the way, so we got to leave soon. You need to clean up. And I don't know if that's just a Grammy thing, and it's different because she's not a parent, but she was really, really good about taking their focus off of whatever instance happened that kind of brought them to that boiling point and redirecting that energy into something else to get them doing something else positive and away from whatever the problem was. And she's freaking amazing at it. And you talked about reflecting. I've thought about it many times. Yeah, I'm like, how the hell does she do that? And I can't explain it. But every kid's a little bit different. So it's going to depend. But it's like I said, all these things are kind of a slippery slope, and I don't want to say you can abuse them, but you can overuse them to the point of where they no longer work, and then you find yourself Googling things. So
yeah.
What I will say on,
I'm sorry,
you guys were both touching your left ear at the same time.
So what I was going to say is that
you guys both talked and were touching your left ear at the same exact time. It looked exactly the same. Like, it was like a perfect diagonal on my screen. It was hilarious. Hats, beard, it was great.
Apparently we have the same cues. Like, all right, left ear, time to talk. But what I will say is at least as the kids get older, from growing up, like raising the teenager, and then now my 7-year-old, and like the ages. What I will say is that, and kind of echoing what Nick was talking about, like, discipline only works up to a certain point. So like my 5-year-old, I can take away his toy, and that's the end of his world. Like, he's like, oh my gosh, this is it. I can't function without it. But my 13-year-old, if I take away her phone, well, okay, Dad's just being an asshole, right? I can still function without it. That's fine. But what I've found is that as they get older, you as a parent, like you as dad, you need to start looking at why they're reacting that way. Like, what is it that they're doing? And understanding, like, okay, well, what is it that's happening that's causing you to be this way? Because a lot of the times, especially as they start to get older, is that they have like friends that are influencing them, or you have a social network that's telling them that this is okay. You have those. But then you also have the other ones where it's like, I just need an outlet. Like I'm acting out because I don't have anywhere to, push these emotions to. I don't know how to deal with them. So I'm just going to project them into whatever it is that I can find. And I was a bad example of that. I would tear up my windowsill because I was cooped up in my room and couldn't go anywhere. And so my mom legitimately just threw me out of the house and was like, don't come back until the streetlights come on. And guess what? Never tore up a windowsill again. So it's also finding, now my mom wasn't, she wasn't great, but, at the same time, she, at least recognized that, okay, he's being destructive. So let's send him outside to have something more active and interactive that he could go do. It's not a perfect answer in that instance, but it at least solved a part of the problem. So, but looking at your kid and just seeing like as they grow up, because like JT, for instance, dealing with his 2-year-old, that is very different than dealing with the 7-year-old who's got a friend group now, who has network, who has other kids to influence with other homes and other morals. They're going to tell them, oh, lying's okay. Well, then now all of a sudden you're disciplining your kid because he's lying, but it's not because he's lying. It's because other kids are telling him he can. So it's also making that connection, I think, is the other big point, is just recognizing those little things that maybe the discipline isn't what's needed. Maybe it is helping them to understand that, hey, I understand your friends are saying this is okay, but why it's not. And just having that sit down conversation, it goes a long way. Now, it's not a perfect, but it's at least worked for me with my 13-year-old, and then with my 7-year-old, it's been working really well. So I'll let you know how the 5-year-old works when he gets there, but he's not there yet.
So I come from a generation where the reason things were done the way they were done is because I said so. That was, and dude, I would get my ass beat for asking the question why. Literally, if I asked the question why when somebody said something, it was, this is why, bam, start whooping ass. So I I struggle. I'm trying to find my own way to deal with things, because obviously now that I look back, yeah, it was effective on me, to a degree, but I have to try and find a different approach, because obviously I'm not against whooping my son. However, I don't want to do it the way it was done to me. But I do believe punishments should correspond with the levity of the situation. And it's hard to gauge that with a 2-year-old. So I'm working on it. It's an everyday battle, and I mean, I challenge everybody out there. If you have a certain way of doing things, try and find something to break that routine. If you're a hard ass like me, maybe try and mix it up. Let your kids see that you're not an asshole per se. Maybe we could approach things a little differently. We might surprise the kids. We might surprise our wives. And if you're just the gentle parent all the time, if you're the dad that just, you're kind of a big old softy, your kid can't do no wrong, and your kid's still acting up, okay, well, try an opposite approach. Try being a little bit more more disciplined. Maybe not a whooping per se, but if you say, okay, well, you do this or this happens, the important thing is follow through. So, but just kind of take a look at the situation, assess it, remember that not every hill is worth dying on. And it's much like Nick said, that if all we seek to do is be disciplinarians and put out a punishment there, those punishments after a while, they lose their effectiveness. So obviously it's time to mix it up and do something different.
And I'll say this last thing, for me at least, is that is the challenge. So comment down below if you completed the challenge, or you tried that. Tell us what happened. Like, did the kid respond in a different way that you weren't expecting? Did things work that you weren't expecting? Did things change? Did your kids start responding in a way that you weren't anticipating? Let us know. We would love to share that with the other dad.
Yeah. Well, shit. You guys took everything I was going to close out on.
And
But
we're sinking.
yeah,
It's working.
no. The last thing I'll say is don't beat yourself up over a bad night or a couple of bad nights. I know it's easy as a dad to. Or, I mean, a parent in general, you don't even have to be a dad. I'm sure all parents feel this way, but it's easy to beat yourself up and sit there and play mind games and say, is it just because I'm a bad parent? Am I being a bad parent? Honestly, those parents exist, but I would say the majority of people are not a bad parent. You truly have well wishes for your family and your kids. And it's a learning process, man. You're going to fall on your face 9 million times before you nail it and stick that landing and get it right once. That's part of being a dad is you're gonna fuck up. That's part of life, right? A lot of things we've learned because we did something wrong, and you say to yourself, well, I'm not gonna fucking do that again. It's a learning experience, and it's a journey. So when you have those bad nights, when you have those bad moments, when you raise your voice and you really kind of look back on it like we talked about, and you think, shit, maybe that was an overreaction. Don't beat yourself up too bad over it. Like I said, maybe take some time and sit down with your kid and explain why you raised your voice or even talk to yourself and discuss with yourself and really feel out why you reacted that way and try and tweak it. But don't beat yourself up. There's no, we could line up 100 kids and they all have 100 different personalities. They all mature at different stages in life. They all learn at different stages and different speeds. So just because we're on here telling you all these things you can try and shit you can do doesn't mean it's all necessarily going to work for your kid. None of it may work for your kid. So just get out there. Yeah, be positive about it. Certainly reach out to other parents and try and come up with creative solutions and just keep switching it up, and eventually you'll land on something that works for you. So yeah, thanks for hanging out with us. I hope you guys will leave us some comments or some questions and share some stories with us about things that have worked for you guys and the goings on in your household of bedtime and routines and discipline. And we appreciate you guys hanging in there with us tonight, and subscribe, obviously, and come hang out in the Facebook group, and we will catch you guys on the next episode. Have a good night.